My name is Kathy Gregg. I'm a partner with Treasury Strategies. And on this rather gloomy, cold day in Chicago, I'm joined by two of my colleagues, Mike Galanis and Ray Benson. Mike is also a partner with Treasury Strategies and leads our corporate practice. And Ray is a managing director here and leads our corporate technology practice. Each year, towards the end of January, we discuss our state of the profession view. And our belief is that taking time to consider the state of the profession will give us all ideas and possibilities for making our treasuries stronger and more effective contributors in the year to come. Let's just pause for a second and reflect back on what we discussed in last year's State of the Profession view. One of the things we said is it would be a year when we returned to economic growth, and it was time for treasurers to retool for recovery. That varied around the globe. Some of the recoveries have been more robust than others, but I think that has definitely been the case. We also talked about 2010 being a year where we'd probably see persistent low interest rates. And we were asking, when is it that we'll see a return to quote-unquote normal? We talked about heightened FX volatility. And we talked about continued massive, intrusive, and global regulatory pressure and uncertainty. And it sure seems like that one's never going to end. All of these things taken in summary led us to consider an expanded view for the treasurer's role in the company and becoming the financial nerve center. So now, 2011, new year, new challenges. As we stepped back and thought, what would we discuss in this year's State of the Profession message, it seemed to us there were some challenges that everyone was talking about. For example, Eurozone instability, counterparty risk, and regulation. As I said, perennial, it seems, for the time being. Accounting regs, capital requirements, stress tests. And then we observed that there were a couple of things that were not being talked about. And these we called the elephants in the room. For those of you not familiar with that phrase, it basically refers to something that's very, very obvious, but people are trying to avoid talking about it. Now, I don't know if you can tell from looking at this picture, but those are global elephants. They're not Indian or African or Chinese elephants. They're global elephants. And the first one of them is named interest rates. Now, low rates have been good, I think. Now, investors, of course, haven't been thrilled by prolonged low interest rates, but on the other hand, they have very well supported recovery and growth around the globe. They've kept circumstances manageable for some overextended borrowers, which may have included some corporate segments or some sovereign entities that are a little over the edge. And they represent an opportunity, if you're so inclined, to load up on cheap debt that you can then use going forward to fund continued growth and continued expansion in your company. The second elephant is named inflation. It's been low. What's not to like about that? The part we're not talking about with respect to these elephants and where we're getting a little bit antsy is how long are rates going to stay low? How long is inflation going to stay low? And, perhaps more importantly, what will it look like for Treasury when these elephants start to move? There are signs of increasing commodity prices around the globe. In the last 10 days, I've seen a marked pickup in the press discussing inflation possibilities. And the questions that come to mind are these. If inflation is counteracted with higher interest rates and tighter money, what's that going to look like for Treasury? It's unlikely to be uniform around the world. Which countries or central banks will pursue this kind of a strategy? And what impacts on our business will that entail? Will higher interest rates yield slower growth and slower recovery? This could be a particular concern for those economies where recovery has been sort of sluggish and lackluster. Will higher interest rates make some borrowers more vulnerable? Again, in possibly specific industries or specific countries, this could be cause for real concern. And once again, the question for us in Treasury is, how will these things impact my company? Treasury today no longer just executes what comes along. Treasurers need to be prepared for where these things may go. And our contention is that what's called for here is proactive thinking and proactive evaluation. If the elephants start moving, how do we avoid getting trampled? So we're talking about needing scenario testing, assessment of those test results, identification of where the opportunities and vulnerabilities may lie with increased interest rates and inflation, thoughtful preparation for the most likely range of scenarios. My two colleagues will now address these areas for proactive thinking and the role of Treasury technology as a key tool in doing this. I'll turn it over to Mike.
Thanks, Kathy. As Kathy described, this year's State of the Profession address focuses on some major issues that Treasury needs to consider in 2011, including two particularly daunting elephants in the room: interest rates and inflation. Along with these elephants, we face a range of other challenges, including volatile currency and commodity markets, instability in certain global economies, new dynamics in managing working capital, new regulatory demands, and continued concerns over counterparty risk, just to name a few. It is nearly impossible to accurately predict how each of these issues might further unfold in the next 12 to 18 months. Will interest rates remain the same or spike upward? Will inflation increase? What will happen with foreign markets and currencies? Will the dollar strengthen? No one expects their Treasury Department to be waiting with a crystal ball to predict with accuracy which of these events will come to pass. However, our CEOs, CFOs, and shareholders do expect us to be prepared for what might be a reasonable range of possible occurrences. So as we consider this, it's important for us to step back and ask ourselves, what can I do to deal with the elephants in the room? The best Treasury departments react to this by carefully defining risks, vulnerabilities, and opportunities that each issue presents. As we evaluate each of these issues, we have the choice of either ignoring the elephants and possibly being trampled, or being proactive in developing a strategy and tactics to tame the elephants and thereby mitigate the risks and maximize the benefits for our organizations. Now, assuming that you would prefer not to be trampled, we recommend a management strategy that centers on three important components. Number one, processes. Number two, policies. And number three, technology. Our strategy, of course, must be able to face the elephants that we know, but it should also prepare us in case these elephants change their behavior or their characteristics over time. It's also important to be prepared in case any new elephants appear. So what does this mean for a typical Treasury department? It means that we must carefully examine our global Treasury capabilities with a specific focus on the three important components of process, policy, and technology, and that we take a careful inventory of our Treasury Department's strengths and weaknesses relative to these three areas. It means that once we have defined potential threats, that we conduct scenario analyses to understand the impact of each and the best possible mitigation strategies. As we assess our capabilities in these areas, we need to ensure that these three components will function well under a wide range of possible conditions and circumstances. If we fail to prepare properly in any of these three areas, bad things can happen. We could be trampled. And it's easy to see how quickly things can spiral out of control if the right processes, policies, and technology are missing. For example, if you've relied exclusively on short-term debt for funding and rates suddenly spike up, you're trampled. If you've invested too heavily in long-term instruments and rates spike upward, you're trampled. If you've overexposed in terms of your positions, your currencies in the Eurozone, and you're improperly hedged in this region, and a rapid meltdown occurs, you're trampled. If you've placed all of your cash management business with a single financial institution and that institution suddenly fails, you're trampled. Now, with the proper focus on policies, processes, and technology, we can avoid these outcomes. We can stay out from under the elephant's feet. Now, for many companies, a complete assessment of policies, processes, and technology is clearly warranted. This is especially true for companies and industries that have recently been impacted by a major event, such as an acquisition, a merger, or significant change in regulation. For instance, in the healthcare industry, significant regulatory changes have placed entirely new demands on organizations. In these situations, it's important to examine all Treasury tactics and strategies to ensure that they support the evolving needs of the organization. With the number of mergers, acquisitions, and spin-offs continuing to climb in this country and abroad, many organizations will inherit entirely new operations with unfamiliar and quite possibly inadequate policies, processes, and technology. In these situations, it is critical that we quickly examine the newly acquired operations and conduct a thorough assessment of the Treasury policies, processes, and technology. As integration activities are planned and executed by your companies, it's critical that Treasury be involved in optimizing and, where appropriate, integrating the Treasury processes of the acquired business to ensure that they can achieve the expected standards of performance. Most companies really only have one chance to do this right. If it's not done right the first time, guess what happens? You're trampled. In some companies, it may only be appropriate to limit the optimization focus to specific mission-critical functions where Treasury supports the organization. For the majority of companies, this includes three key areas: cash forecasting, working capital management, and risk management. A major weakness of many Treasury departments is the area of cash forecasting. With inadequate visibility of current and future cash flows, organizations struggle to maintain proper operating cash and liquidity levels, and they have trouble optimizing their borrowing and investment activities. And they also face challenges with identifying and managing risks. Cash forecasting represents far more than a nice-to-have capability for organizations. It is an enabler that can quickly add value to the bottom line. Developing reliable cash forecasting should be in the top 5 key project objectives for most Treasury departments in 2011. Enhancing working capital management practices also remains a major opportunity for many organizations today. While credit markets have improved overall, liquidity still remains tight for many organizations and industries. For these companies, management of working capital remains an essential objective. Developing effective, low-cost payment strategies, straight-through, exception-free collection processes, and having in place operating metrics for monitoring and managing working capital performance are the keys to success in this area. Management of currency, interest rate, commodity, and counterparty risk continues also to be an ever-increasing area of importance and challenge for organizations. Over the past 12 months, we have seen unusual volatility in the currency markets. Currencies that were long considered stable and predictable have experienced unprecedented movement, while others that were restricted have become much more accessible. At the same time, we have seen a significantly steepening yield curve develop. This makes the job of investing short-term cash incredibly challenging for Treasury. Compounding these problems is the declining confidence in the Eurozone and growing concerns over the economic instability of several countries in this region. The once unbelievable thought of a Eurozone breakup has now become more than a possible Armageddon scenario, according to a growing number of economists. Yet in spite of these looming issues, too many organizations still lack effective risk management strategies, and surprisingly few have revised risk management and investment policies to reflect the dynamics of current markets and potential future threats. Together, these issues and others have placed great financial and operational stress on organizations and governments throughout the world. Never before has it been so important for businesses to be aware of the risks they face with their counterparties. It is essential that effective processes and policies be in place to ensure thorough assessment of counterparty risk. The days of scanning a single rating to evaluate risk are over. Successful processes measure risk using a combination of methods and measures. Mitigation of counterparty risk is far too important to the ongoing success of our organizations to be an afterthought. Now, who's to say for sure whether the Eurozone will break up or whether it will restabilize, whether interest rates will rapidly spike upward or continue to slowly vacillate around current levels, or whether inflation will surge to unprecedented levels in the near future? Again, no one expects the Treasury to be clairvoyant and able to accurately predict the future. However, by identifying and addressing the potential gaps in Treasury as they relate to policies, processes, and technology, and by placing special emphasis on the key areas of cash forecasting, working capital management, and risk management, your organization will be well prepared to address a wide range of potential issues as they arise. With well thought out policies, processes, and technology, we're able to proactively make rapid, informed decisions, regardless of the issues that arise. We can proactively manage cash, liquidity, debt, investments, and financial and operating risks, and mitigate current and future threats. And by adopting the right framework of technology, Treasury technology, we can properly support mission-critical processes throughout the entire organization. Only by assessing and, where appropriate, refining our processes, policies, and technology can we be confident that we're able to tame all of the elephants in the room. Now with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Ray Benson, who will describe the role that technology plays in this important strategy. Ray?
Thank you, Mike. Good morning, everyone. This next section on the state of the profession in 2011 is about the role that technology will play in the coming year. A strategic use of technology will position us in Treasury to be prepared for changing interest rates and accelerating inflation. A robust technology infrastructure can vastly improve our ability to face these two elephants without getting trampled. How does this work? First, you need a comprehensive, sophisticated plan that covers a variety of scenarios. This plan needs to be based on timely and accurate data from both internal and external sources. You'll need information from the rest of finance. You'll need information from the rest of your operating units in the company. And externally, you'll need information from your banks, rating agencies, and others. Second thing you need are the tools to execute that plan when and if the circumstances require it. Automation will provide an excellent foundation for this. Third, you need to be nimble enough organizationally to rapidly adapt both your plan and execution on the fly. In 2011, technology will play a greater role in providing these capabilities than it ever has before. So what does this environment look like? Here at Treasury Strategies, we've been talking for a while about the concept of Treasury 3.0. As Kathy mentioned earlier, the days where Treasury can afford to play a role of just tactical execution are well behind us. We do need tactical execution, but like it or not, the events of 2008 and the financial crisis have elevated Treasury to a role of a strategic advisor, and Treasury 3.0 is a vision of Treasury as the financial nerve center of the organization. Treasury 3.0 requires an organizationally shared strategic vision for the technology, information, and business intelligence needs of Treasury. It is a vision for integrating Treasury with both internal and external constituents. Internal integration includes business segments, finance, the C-suite executives, and your board of directors. Externally, it includes your rating agency, banks, counterparties, financial markets, and others. So how can Treasury 3.0 keep us from getting trampled? Let's think about a couple of examples. Your chief financial officer asks you if you have an exposure to XYZ International. If you say no, without knowing what is in your money market funds or what your receivables exposure is, you're trampled. Suppose the board asks you to test some emergency economic scenarios regarding rapidly rising interest rates and accelerating inflation. If your analytics capabilities are not up to par, you're trampled. If you need to rush a bond issue to market, but you lack the technology and integration needed to get the required information to the rating agencies on time, you're trampled. Treasury 3.0 is not a big bang, multi-million-dollar project that happens in 6 months or even in a year. It's a journey, and it requires the integration of internal and external shared strategic vision and the integration of internal and external silos. However, the closer you are to Treasury 3.0, the lower your risk is of getting trampled by any of the two elephants of interest rates and inflation. So what can we do in 2011 to keep from getting trampled and begin to move toward Treasury 3.0? Enterprise-class foreign exchange exposure management solutions and risk management software solutions provide Treasury with the sophistication needed to plan and execute in an environment of instability and uncertainty in currencies, interest rates, and commodity prices. They do this by providing accurate real-time information about your current environment, positions, and exposures. They provide the capability to quickly and accurately evaluate multiple scenarios across a wide range of interest rate and inflationary environments. And as events unfold, they provide you with the ability to react to the changes in the financial markets quickly and nimbly. If your international subsidiaries are making short-term investments in non-functional currencies that you're not aware of, when they rapidly depreciate, you're trampled. Another area for opportunity to prepare Treasury for 2011 using technology is the implementation of an enterprise-class Treasury management system. There have been a lot of changes in this marketplace over the past couple of years, and at Treasury Strategies, we've been monitoring these developments very closely. We've seen consolidations, acquisitions, new entrants into the markets, alliances, and new product developments. We expect these to continue throughout 2011. The end result of all these developments is that we in Treasury now have increased power, flexibility, and function to help us run our operations, to help us be more strategic in our role and our analyses, and to avoid getting trampled. Many organizations have yet to take advantage of these systems. Others have, but still have not fully utilized all the functions and capabilities available to them. There are many ways in which a fully implemented Treasury management system can prepare us for the elephants in 2011. Earlier, Mike mentioned that an accurate short-term and long-term cash forecast is a must-have, not just a nice-to-have in 2011. If your cash forecast is not timely or accurate, and you don't borrow enough until after rates rise, you're trampled. All of this said, automation is not quick, it's not cheap, it's not easy, and it's not for the faint of heart. These are demanding projects that can pose a significant amount of risk to our budgets, our schedules, and even our careers. So these efforts and these endeavors cannot wait. As a closing example, I'd like to ask you, as painful as it may be, to reflect back on the first days of the financial crisis of 2008 and ask yourself how you and your organization responded. How nimble was your organization? Did you have a plan in place in advance? What about in the subsequent weeks and months? Was it chaos, or were you reacting? Were you fighting fires? Think how you could have responded if you had accurate, timely information about your global credit exposures, your cash position, your counterparty risks. What if you had a proactive plan covering multiple scenarios ahead of time? The tools to react nimbly, to reposition your organization, to rapidly deal with the new realities of the marketplace and the economy are going to be essential in 2008. The environment that we're looking at does not allow for the time to rekey data into spreadsheets or make decisions upon inaccurate or outdated information. If you're operating on spreadsheets and you're operating on manual processes in 2008, well, you know what'll happen. I'd like to turn it back to Kathy now to summarize.
Thank you, Ray. Well, oh my gosh, I think we want to be on top of the elephant and not getting trampled by it. So let me just summarize what we said here today. Treasury needs to be concerned about these twin elephants, increasing interest rates and increasing inflation. We need to be prepared for such changes to impact our organizations. And we need to be prepared for the inevitable questions that will be coming at us about possible impacts from the C-suite, from the board, from the agencies, from the banks. In other words, proactive steps equal no trampling. And we see three areas for these proactive steps. First of all, strategic steps, things like scenario testing, assessing the impact of rate changes and inflationary changes on your liquidity, your investments, various exposures, your counterparties, etc. Thoughtful planning for a reasonable range of possibilities. Again, like Mike said, Treasury is not expected to have the crystal ball, but to have tested the possibilities. Secondly, a series of tactical steps, making sure that your policies and procedures are tight and comprehensive and ready to carry you through this time of change. Thirdly, your Treasury technology. Keep after that 3.0 vision. It is a journey. It's not just automating execution processes and tracking and reporting, although it is that. It's also getting tools together that will put you in the command center, the financial nerve center, with data integration across platforms, with information having been transformed to intelligence, and with some pretty spectacular responsiveness to evaluate whatever comes at you. Okay, so next steps as we close here. First of all, within a couple of days, everybody who's registered for the webinar will receive a link to the recording and a copy of the presentation. And secondly, as you go back to your offices, write down your 1 or 2 most important takeaways from this session. And as you consider how to make your Treasury stronger in 2011, if you need some help, call us here at Treasury Strategies. On behalf of Treasury Strategies, I'd like to thank you all today for listening. We wish you great success in 2011 and certainly hope that no one is trampled by an elephant. Thank you for listening.